So then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction management, architecture and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost $1 million. You know, if you tack on fees like that, you're not a city, you're an airline. It's no wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Imagine this. Your city is burning, and the emergency plan feels like hoping the sky saves you. That's where things stand right now. And that's why Bill Maher's recent rant about California hits so hard. He isn't doing his usual joke-filled political routine. He's aiming straight at something most people ignore until it wrecks their lives. A massive, untouchable bureaucracy that turns easy fixes into total chaos. If you like seeing nonsense exposed wherever it hides, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Because this is one of those topics where you'll either agree the whole way through or be furious in the comments. Either way, leave a comment. I want to know what your city's version of $1 million toilet is. Maher starts with something that sounds simple but cuts deep. We can't control weather, but we can control how ready the government is when weather becomes dangerous. Fires, winds, droughts, climate cycles, yes, those matter. And yes, climate change makes fires worse, but here's the excuse people lean on. You can't stop the wind. True. But you can manage forests, improve water systems, maintain hydrant pressure, plan evacuations, clear brush, coordinate response teams, and design systems to move fast in emergencies instead of slowing everything down on purpose. That's the truth nobody likes to admit. Many systems exist to protect themselves, not the public. Maher's target isn't Democrats or Republicans or some cartoon villain. He's talking about what he calls the deep state, not in a conspiracy sense, but as a permanent class of process managers. Regulators, administrators, inspectors, reviewers, managers, fee collectors, commissioners, zoning officials, consultants. People whose job slowly becomes making sure nothing happens, then billing you for it.
But there is a deep state, which is the bureaucratic class that justifies its existence by making up new rules, and that's my job. It's the vast network of regulators, administrators, inspectors, contract reviewers, project managers, fee assessors, special commissioners, zoning officers, and consultants whose jobs seem to be to make sure nothing ever happens and then charge you for it.
And before someone goes, oh, so you want no rules? No, calm down. Nobody's saying we should build nuclear plants out of toothpicks and vibes.
Before anyone says, so you want zero rules, relax. No one's saying build nuclear plants from duct tape and optimism. Rules matter. Safety matters. Responsibility matters. The issue is when rules turn into religion and the goal stops being helping real people and becomes checking every box perfectly. Here's where it gets interesting. Maher links this to single-party dominance, not because one party is evil, but because competition keeps systems alive. You notice how the only restaurant in town gets lazy? Cold food, slow service, dirty bathrooms. When there's no competition, improvement isn't required. Survival is automatic. In Maher's telling, California's politics have tilted so far that loyalty replaces results. People defend their side even when basic governance fails. So when disaster strikes, you hear the same reflex. Don't blame leaders, what could they do? It sounds reasonable until you remember leaders control budgets, staffing priorities, agencies, infrastructure, and emergency planning. What do you mean, what could they do? If your house floods and a plumber shows up 2 weeks later, are you paying him again or calling someone else? That leads to the example that stunned everyone, San Francisco's public toilet. You can talk bureaucracy forever and people tune out. Say one toilet cost over $1 million and suddenly everyone is listening.
In San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in poop twice. There's an area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet. And this wasn't some magic toilet that catches your phone when you drop it.
According to the story Maher shared, San Francisco tried to build a public restroom and the projected cost reached about $1.7 million. Not a restroom complex, not a row, one toilet. Maher's joke works because it's painfully accurate. At that price, you'd expect Wi-Fi, meditation space, and a spa attendant offering towels. But it's just a toilet. The dark humor is that San Francisco has serious sanitation problems. Human waste, trash, open drug use. You'd think basic infrastructure would be treated like an emergency. Instead, it's treated like an art exhibit requiring endless meetings, design panels, cultural reviews, and massive reports studying how the toilet emotionally affects local wildlife.
So then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction management, architecture and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost $1 million. You know, if you tack on fees like that, you're not a city, you're an airline.
Maher's point is that bureaucracy doesn't just waste money, it blocks fixes. Even when a private company offered to build the toilet for free, it still wouldn't be free. Why? Because it had to pass through layers of management fees, oversight fees, design costs, engineering reviews, permits, surveys, contract prep, and cost analysis. Suddenly, your free toilet becomes a lifetime subscription you can't cancel. That's when Maher drops a great line. Add fees like that and you're not a city, you're an airline. It's the perfect comparison. You buy a cheap flight, then pay extra for bags, seats, oxygen, and existence. That's San Francisco government. Everything costs extra. If this were one weird story, you could shrug it off, but it's not. It's a pattern. Maher mentions how long housing approvals take, around 627 days in San Francisco. That's not a delay, that's a lifestyle. 2 years lost while someone reviews someone else's review. Then he delivers the gut punch. That approval time is longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. Think about that. We once built landmarks faster than we now approve houses in one of the richest places on Earth.
It feels like San Francisco is actually proud of being impossible. Asked about the toilet, a spokesman for the Department of Public Works said, "We are a city of public input." Okay, but I'm stepping in public output. Meanwhile, the median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits. 15 from the Planning Commission, 26 from the Public Utilities Commission and the Fire Department, 19 from building inspectors, 17 from the Public Works, 10 related to public spaces, and 1 from a guy in a t-shirt that says Federal Boob Inspector.
So what changed? We didn't get stupid, we got slow. We became obsessed with process. Paperwork turned into moral cover. The system focused more on avoiding blame than achieving results. No one wants to say this is insane, because insanity creates jobs. Maher jokes about needing dozens of permits and approvals from every imaginable department, including a fake inspector. It's funny because it's true. When people hear numbers like that, the natural response is, do you even want anything built? At some point, complexity stops protecting people and starts sabotaging them. This ties directly to the housing crisis. San Francisco has hundreds of thousands of residents, massive housing shortages, yet approves only a few thousand new units per year. Even if exact numbers vary, the reality is clear. Supply is crushed, demand is extreme, and prices punish everyone.
It's no wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Here's the part that's darkly funny. Leaders cry about affordability while maintaining systems that make building housing feel impossible. It's like complaining about thirst while sealing the faucet shut. When homes don't get built, choices disappear, rents rise, families crowd together, people live in cars, homelessness grows. Then the same government that caused the problem switches to crisis mode, spending huge money on temporary fixes instead of solving the cause. When Maher jokes that people live on the streets because officials want apartments to be perfect, it hurts because it's true. Perfection becomes the excuse for paralysis, and paralysis becomes the excuse for suffering. Then comes Gavin Newsom. Maher doesn't paint him as a cartoon villain. He praises his intelligence, charisma, confidence, and speaking skills. As a candidate, Maher says Newsom is strong. Then comes the criticism.
But you also have faith in California Governor Gavin Newsom, did you not?
I'd love him as a candidate, yes. I mean, you're right. He's not exactly what I'm describing now.
Right.
I think he'd be a great candidate. He has shown in recent months the ability also to move to the center. He would have to do it a lot more. But as a candidate, he looks great. Great speaker, very forceful, can be mean, which is really important, and he can do it. He also has the backing, or certainly should, of where the energy is in the Democratic Party, the far left, because he's been out front on a lot of very liberal issues, which I think is great. Gay marriage here in California and stuff like that, pollution, all sorts of stuff that we believe in.
Maher believes Newsom tied himself too closely to far-left cultural branding. Not necessarily because he believes every extreme idea, but because he's been the face of many culture war fights. Once voters label you, nuance disappears. People hear the brand, not the details. Maher argues Newsom would need to shift more toward the center to win nationally. Love him or hate him, that's a real question. Can someone linked to California's most polarizing debates win swing states focused on costs, safety, schools, and gas prices? The conversation then shifts to figures like AOC. Can far-left candidates win national elections today? Maher says no. You don't have to agree to understand his reasoning.
But, he does have a long trail to lose the baggage of governor of the most liberal state in the country. I tell him face to face, I've said it on the show, he went too far left for me often. But it is encouraging to see that in at least 3 places I can think of, he has moved it back to the center, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to do that.
Do you think a far lefty can win a national election in this day and age? A presidential election. Do you think that could happen?
Far left, you mean like AOC?
Yes. I'm just whether it's what you said about Newsom, whether it's an AOC. I mean, do you think somebody like that can win a general election for the presidency of the United States in this day and age? I don't think so.
National elections aren't purity tests. They're coalition contests. You have to persuade people who don't already agree with you. If your strategy is moral superiority, you lose key states immediately. The deeper point is this. It's not about being moderate. It's about governing like results matter. Left, right, center doesn't matter if the government can't do basic jobs at reasonable speed and cost. That brings it back to fires. When Maher discusses wildfire response issues like hydrants being complex, he says, fine, it's complex. That's the job. That's why taxes are collected and agencies exist. Complexity isn't an excuse, it's the responsibility. If someone says water systems are complicated, the response should be, why weren't they ready? In emergencies, explanations don't matter, results do. Maher warns this model doesn't scale nationally. People won't accept a system that takes money, lectures them, and fails to deliver basics.
We may not be able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain. America is so partisan now that even when there's a disaster of any kind, so many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one-party state this week went right to, don't blame politicians, you can't do anything about the wind. Which is exactly half true. The wind part. Yes, fire is a tough fight out here, and yes, global warming absolutely makes it worse. But that's largely out of our control. What are we going to do? Pass a ballot measure to make sure Chinese stop burning coal?
Put it all together. $1,000,000 toilets, multi-year permits, housing shortages, fueling homelessness, and disaster responses tangled in excuses. Maher's argument becomes simple. This isn't bad luck, it's self-created. A system rewarding paperwork over performance, optics over outcomes, loyalty over accountability. You can love California and admit this. In fact, loving it means demanding better. California has everything: money, talent, education, innovation, culture. It should be unstoppable, yet it struggles to build a toilet without acting like it's launching a rocket.
Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in this state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this.
So here's the question. If your city built one public restroom, what would it cost? And how long would it take? A month? Or would your grandchildren attend the ribbon cutting? That's the real issue. Not left versus right, but whether government works. Maher's message is simple. Fix the system, restore competition, demand results, stop rewarding performance art, or accept endless failure with new slogans. Argue about Newsom, parties, or culture wars if you want, but don't miss the real monster hiding in plain sight, a bureaucracy that consumes solutions. Now it's your turn. What's the most ridiculous government inefficiency story you've seen? The endless permit, the overpriced project, the never-ending construction? Drop it in the comments. Same theme every time. Good idea, endless process, insane cost, nothing finished. And if you made it this far, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks complicated is always an excuse. Because sometimes the truth is simple. It's not complicated, it's broken.